Francisco. Of course, it's San Francisco, right? It's my home. I'm not quite in Chinatown. I'm on the edge, and I'm with some friends. We're gonna go, and actually, we just came back from having a sumptuous dim sum extravaganza. They had vegetarian dim sum. How can you pass that up? It was great, right? Feeling stuffed, and I'm just walking along, enjoying how it's a perfect. It's not summer in San Francisco yet, right? It's only June. Yesterday was June 4th, but it's June, right? It's a kind of a perfect June San Francisco day, which means it's only hot if you're in direct view of the sun. If you cannot see the sun, it feels like 60 degrees outside. It's cold. It's windy. It's not very pleasant. You have to be in direct view of the sun, and it's like, oh, it feels like summer. It's hot here. It's great. And so I'm walking along, the street narrows, and it's clear it's a non-binary Asian American person walking by me. And they're, see, I'm using the correct pronouns. They're dressed in a tank top and short shorts. They're out for a Sunday stroll, and they pass me in the North Beach area of San Francisco. And I'm thinking to myself, it's a good thing we're in San Francisco, because, I mean, I noticed this non-binary Asian American walking by me, but it was not a big deal. I said, oh, there's a non-binary Asian American. So it was a good thing it's San Francisco, because it's not a big deal. We just say, yeah, power to you, man. No problem, right? But that's not the way it is in other parts of the country, in other parts of our nation, which is why we have to honor the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Tennessee, which has given us a lot of hope with this ruling that came down on Friday. Hi, everyone. This is Emil Guillermo, Emil Amok to you. This is Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. I mean, all things that I'll consider right now. We do this thing Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific live. I just come on. I talk to you in the traditional news talk sense of the word, which means it's all second screen, right? You take your phone and, you find us where you find us on Twitter or at Emil Amok, or maybe it's on YouTube, on mobile YouTube at Emil Amok1, or maybe it's on Facebook, fb.com/EmilGuillermo.media. So wherever you find us, make it so that it's like one of your browsers, second screen, and then leave it up, and I'll talk to you like it's radio, right? I mean, this is traditional news talk, a format that Rush Limbaugh kind of overpopularized from the right, even though it really was a kind of a more democratic form. And so I'm certainly not from the right. Did I say he overpopularized it from the right? Right. Yeah, it was from the right. And I kind of come from the middle to the left. And we do this thing. We talk about the news of the day, or talk about my life. And so I'm going to talk about when I crossed paths with this non-binary Asian American in San Francisco. I say, this is great. This is where we are in our country. This is San Francisco. But we know that's not the case around the country, around, parts of the country where they're trying to ban drag shows. Can you imagine banning drag shows? So we really have to honor the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Tennessee. They've given us all hope, because on Friday they came down with this decision that says if you're a male within that great state of Tennessee and you wish to wear a dress in public and crack jokes, go right ahead. Red dress, purple dress, sequins, good jokes, bad jokes, whatever. Go right ahead. Dress that matches your mascara or not, go right ahead. Make no mistake, that's protected speech in America. The wearing of the dress, the cracking of jokes, protected, and not just because it's Pride Month. You can do it anytime in America. For that matter, if you're born a female and are a drag king, because let's not leave out the drag kings. I mean, it was about maybe 4 years ago that I discovered drag kings. I mean, if you're a drag king, you're covered too. No one will come running. If you're in Tennessee, they're not going to be waiving Tennessee's Adult Entertainment Act and arrest you as a criminal threatening minors. And that's all thanks to Judge Thomas Parker, who, by the way, is a Trump appointee who still believes in the Constitution. It was Friday when Parker opined, quote, the Tennessee General Assembly can certainly use its mandate to pass laws that their communities demand. But that mandate as to speech is limited by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, which commands that laws infringing on the freedom of speech must be narrow and well defined. The AEA, the Adult Entertainment Act, the AEA, is neither. And that was his last word, in his opinion. And with that, it shut down the first law of more than about 16 attempts nationwide to restrict drag performance in our country. The first law, Tennessee, shut down. I mean, there are others, and so this fight isn't over, as I will get into a bit later. But Judge Parker, I was going through the ruling. It's interesting because you see the logic. It's not that long. It's like 70 pages. Judge Parker wrote that putting female impersonators in the same category with topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, and strippers did not pass strict scrutiny in 2023. Strict scrutiny, there's that legal term. Strict scrutiny. No. And he said that, making that kind of comparison, female impersonators to topless dancers and go-go dancers, he viewed that with skepticism, said the judge. And then he took issue with drag being, quote, harmful to minors, taking issue with the specific phrase. Parker wrote that the phrase discriminates against the viewpoint of gender identity, particularly those who wish to impersonate a gender that is different from the one which they are born. Gender identity, viewpoint, free speech. And then Parker writes, freedom of speech is not just about speech. It is also about the right to debate with fellow citizens on self-government, to discover the truth in the marketplace of ideas. The marketplace of ideas, including, does this color red look good on me? That is the marketplace of ideas. Oh, do I look fat in this? That, again, marketplace of ideas. To express one's identity, says the judge, and to realize self-fulfillment in a free society, this is all connected to the freedom of speech that we have here in this country. Says the judge, that freedom is of first importance to many Americans, such that the United States Supreme Court has relaxed procedural requirements for citizens to vindicate their right to freedom of speech, while making it harder for the government to regulate it. Right? The government regulating it. They're making it hard. That's the idea of protection. And as the judge viewed it, the Tennessee General Assembly had simply gone too far in trying to regulate drag shows or banned drag shows under this Entertainment Act in Tennessee, saying that it was a restriction of speech. The Tennessee General Assembly had simply gone too far. So it's good to see that there are reasonable conservatives like Judge Parker, the aforementioned Trump appointee, who haven't lost their sense of the Constitution. Because that's what we're fighting for when we talk about democracy. We're talking about what is our sense of the Constitution. And we got to hold tight to that Constitution. The story is worth noting because the fight is only beginning. This is just the first state, that tried to come out and put the kibosh, as it were, on drag shows as some kind of immoral thing. You've heard these stories smattering, throughout the country. It's like a wave, right? Tennessee is just one of more than a dozen states that have been caught up in this wave of anti-drag, anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ sentiment that really has been fostered by Republican politics around the country. And, it really is the great rollback of freedoms driven by hate. That's what they're doing, right? It's the great rollback. In a divided America, it's become a fight for every inch. So think about what the judge did. As a kid growing up a few blocks in the Castro Theater in San Francisco, I know the changes that have taken place the last 50 years, right? I lived through it. I saw my neighborhood change. I saw my city change. As a reporter, I remember covering the first gay pride parades in the city. It would be hard to imagine society going backwards. And yet some in our society want us to go in reverse. So we take the time to praise Judge Parker's ruling because it comes right, just at the right time. It's the reminder that the tool that protects our freedoms and our progress is exactly what makes America great. It's our Constitution. Judge Parker upheld the Constitution. That red dress you're thinking about wearing, that's an act of free speech in certain circumstances. Take pride. Take pride in that this month too. The Constitution and what it affords all of us Americans. So you want to read my column, it's on the ALDEF blog, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. And, this happened on Friday. Friday came down, and of course they were celebrating in Tennessee. And I just knew that, I wanted to talk about Pride this month because it's a special Pride. It's a different time, more so than at any time of the last 50 years. I mean, during those last 50 years, we've seen the progress. We've seen same-sex marriage laws. We've seen what would appear to be the integration of the LGBTQ community in our society. I mean, certainly we are one, right? Not everywhere. I mean, you look at the anti-LGBTQ planks and some, among the Republican ranks about what they want to do with, curtail freedoms, going after drag queens. Like I said, the Tennessee ruling striking down that anti-drag law, we needed that. We needed that boost. We needed that shot of confidence during Pride Month. Protecting drag as free speech. I mean, That's what it is. You want to wear a red dress? You can wear a red dress. Gender identity is a viewpoint. That viewpoint is protected speech. Go to it. And like I said, I was just walking the streets of San Francisco yesterday, and I passed this clearly non-binary person, and hip, hip, hooray. This is what makes San Francisco unique. It's what makes California unique. And thank goodness, this judge in Tennessee, conservative judge, a Trump appointee, Thomas Parker, thank goodness he knows what the Constitution stands for. So I know that because it gets dumped on Friday, the ruling, and then you see some reports on the weekend. I didn't want people to lose sight of the fact that this happened and the significance of it and what it means, especially at this time, we're in Pride Month. And as I was talking last week, I was kind of scared seeing all the things that are coming out that are so homophobic, that are so anti-LGBTQ. It's kind of scary. And you almost want to just throw up your hands and say, what's going on in our country? And then you just have to, when you see something like Judge Parker's ruling, you have to say, wow, from a Trump appointee, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Maybe there's like others out there who understand what America's all about. That's got to be the hope. That's got to be the hope. Because if not, oh boy, are we in trouble. We're in trouble. That's why you celebrate. Got to stay vigilant. Got to notice that, hey, we're constantly in a fight for people who want to roll back hard-fought freedoms and victories. That's just the way it is. Now, I got another email this morning, and it made me think, oh man, this is going to be the week. This is going to be the week it happens. There was a kind of tip-off a little bit. New York Times, David Brooks was writing about affirmative action last Friday. And I got this email from an Asian American group, an anti-Asian American or anti-affirmative action Asian American group. And they're saying on the eve of the Supreme Court decision, like, it's going to come down. We've been talking about the Harvard case filed by Students for Fair Admissions. They're an Asian group formed by a white anti-affirmative action advocate. And so their case, Supreme Court promised that it would have everything out of the way by July. And for some reason, people thought, okay, June, it's going to happen. So I got this note from this other group of Asians who are also against affirmative action called, I forget their name. Spells out ACE. They're not aces, though. They're losers. They didn't get in, which is why they are claiming discrimination against Harvard. Anyway, they used in this press release they sent me that, on the eve of the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action. So it made me think, they're coming out with it today. And I was kind of dreading it, right? Because, we've been talking about this case for the last 6 years. So I don't know when it's coming down. No one knows when it's coming down. But a lot of the media just presupposes it's going to come out first week in June. I, anticipating that it might come out first week in June, wrote a piece a couple weeks ago, like May May 22nd. In anticipation. It's going to happen. And also it coincided with Harvard's graduation and other couple things that Harvard did, like it took in the numbers of people who said they would matriculate at Harvard, accept the admissions to Harvard, and it was a record number. So far, it hasn't happened. I mean, so far, the official Supreme Court decision hasn't come down, which is actually good because there's just too much stuff. And they probably know that too. They're probably like saying, okay, we're going to hold it until it's like just the right time. And if it's negative, of course, in the rules of when to drop bad news, you drop it on a Friday. Or when to drop any news that you don't want anyone to know about, you drop it on a Friday. And then it gets its main coverage on a Saturday. No one pays attention. They're having a weekend. And then you avoid any kind of controversy. So part of me thinks that they might drop it on Friday. But like I said, I got these two sort of hints that maybe they would come as early as today. It hasn't yet. And as I speak, it's 5 o'clock. So they wouldn't drop it now. It'd be too late. Clarence Thomas has to take a nap. And they wouldn't do it now. But I mean, I'm checking. I'm checking for bulletins and whatnot, and I don't see anything. So hopefully we're good. But here's the fear. The fear is that the Supreme Court and its 6-3 conservative bias will do away with affirmative action, which is sad because then it leaves the question, well, what are we left with to achieve equity and equal opportunity in this country in terms of college admissions? A lot of people say, look, we're ready to dump race, the use of race. See, and I think we're not really ready to do that. I mean, especially when it comes to Asians. Maybe when it comes to Asians, we're ready to say, wow, I mean, the Harvard class, this entering the new fall Harvard class has nearly 30% Asian, which is a lot of Asians in a freshman class. Of course, nothing close to what it's like in UC, University of California campuses, where it could be up anywhere from 30 to 40% Asian. So in the piece I wrote a couple weeks ago, I'm preparing for the Supreme Court to say we need colorblind admissions because they're going to hide behind that ruse that, we don't need affirmative action. We want colorblind. We're going to buy into, or we're going to misuse Martin Luther King's phrase about wanting a colorblind society. We're going to get rid of it. Okay. So how do you achieve the kind of balance and fairness? And how do you achieve diversity? Conservatives would say, achieve diversity. We don't need diversity. That's a bad word. But how do we achieve a sense of fairness, a sense of balance? So the fear is that the Supreme Court will come down and say that this should be the first step in stepping away from race-based admissions and a move toward a total meritocracy. And the question comes up, okay, well, if it's a total meritocracy, how do you make sure you get the right kind of mix and balance between all the people who've applied? Good question. They don't care about it. Just as long as rich alumni and whites maintain their dominance, I mean, that's fine. I mean, there's nearly 30% Asian in the incoming Harvard class in the fall, but it's 42% white. There's still a dominance there. I mean, if you want a sense of equity, what is a college to do? And this is really the challenge for admissions folks, not just at Harvard, for everywhere, because the feeling is that the decision, if and when it comes down, and it could come down as early as this week, that, you know, someone's going to have to come up with a plan. Because to go totally colorblind means who knows what you're going to get. So that's got to bother some people. So they're thinking, okay, well, we got to make this work here. You know, how do you do it? And so the column I wrote a couple weeks ago, I suggested to go totally on merit, but to do a lottery. Now, I've been against lotteries for a long time. I didn't want to leave it to chance. But a lottery may make sense if you get people who are qualified and you choose from among the people who are qualified. And then that way, you should just be able to pick out a hat. You know, you got 2,000 spaces, pick 2,000 names, they're all getting in. Doesn't matter what race. But I think people would be upset if the balance were wrong. I mean, certainly people would be upset if you didn't choose enough whites. People would be upset if there weren't enough blacks or Latinos or Asians. If the number of Asians would go down from, right now it's 30%. If it goes down to like below 30, that's not going to make anyone happy. But really, if you say you got to be colorblind, you can't use race, and we don't like the way you're doing it, even though Harvard has shown that, hey, they do pretty well with the system they have. What if we went totally color? I think we should have at least 4 years of totally colorblind. Somewhere, someone should be the test, and then make sure it's a qualified pool that you allow to be in the lottery, and then just like picking balls out of the pot, out of the, like the regular lotto balls. Like at Harvard, you got 2,000 spaces, pick out 2,000 balls. You put the applicants in, there are 60,000 applicants, which is the real problem. 60,000 applicants, you pick out 2,000 of them. That's it. Totally blind. I don't think people would like it. In fact, I think if you did something like that was totally fair, people would sue. Oh yeah, people would sue just like that. But I like that in a way, that, to be a lottery among people who are, they're totally qualified, but it's pure luck, right? You're qualified to get into, like, it certainly wouldn't be 59,000 of those who applied they're not all qualified. You got to sift through that, and maybe you cut it down to maybe 40,000. I mean, a lot of those people are like looking at a lottery ticket. Yeah, I'll get in Harvard. Yeah, I'll just put my name in. No, you got to qualify to get in, and then you're in the lottery, and then they pick. So it's like you go through 2 levels, and then it's a free-for-all, and you see what happens. That's my idea. So keep that in mind. The Supreme Court may not come out with a rule this week. Although, like I said, there have been like hints saying that, we're in June, it's going to happen. The UT case, that came out I believe first, second week of June, about 8-9 years ago. So I think and the court wants everything done by July, so they've got a lot on their plate. They may want to wait on this, right? Because this is going to be probably the most controversial. I mean, you remember last October, last Halloween, when the court heard it and how all the news stations they were paying attention because it has repercussions far beyond Harvard. I mean, it's going to set the standard for what admissions will be. And if you can't use a person's race, if you can't use race at all, how do you do it? How do you get the equity we want, that we demand? I think we probably will see lawsuits, more lawsuits. Or maybe we'll see someone try this enlightened lottery idea that I started pushing 2 weeks ago. I think that might be a plan. That might be a plan. All right, so we'll look at SCOTUS. We'll look at, we're sort of on SCOTUS watch there. The big news, if you really want to know the big news, it's that Apple has come out with their new Dealy Bobs, their new virtual reality thing. First major new product in a decade. Now they came out with, or Meta came out with a virtual reality thing, and Meta has been so far back on virtual reality because, well, first of all, Meta is Facebook, and Facebook isn't that cool, right? It's not even cool if you're a Zuckerberg. And I mean, that's why they went from Facebook to Meta, because they had to just change. And I don't hear anyone talking about the new Facebook or new Meta things. It's not eyewear, but their headset. It's a Meta headset. Now here's Apple today with their Vision Pro headset, which makes you look like kind of like a very intelligent hybrid human arthropod spider. You look like a bug. You get the bug eyes. It's it's futuristic. It allows, okay, this is from the Wall Street Journal article, a device capable of allowing users to experience virtual reality and digital apps overlaid on the real world. So it's like being part of a video program, where you can chroma key or put images of app icons, in front of you, and I guess you can pick or select. Yeah, I don't know how it works, but it's called by Tim Cook a revolutionary new product, spatial computing. It's going to sell for $3,500, and your pockets are burning, right? Because $3,500. You want this? You want to try it? Won't be available until early next year. And it's going to be the way to interact with digital content in the physical space using the user's hands, eye, and voice to interact with apps. So you just look at it, and I guess that's how you interact. Users control the device with their hands and experience movies, TV shows, games in a more immersive way. Well, I'm game. $34.99. Can you see it? Oh, and then they'll have a Costco version, the Kirkland version. The Vision Pro can project a massive movie screen into any environment for a user, as well as capture or play three-dimensional video, making it possible for a user to watch a movie on a giant screen or interact with life-size personal photos or videos projected into their living environment. So I guess it's like being in a virtual television studio where, when I worked in television way back when, and now all the anchors and reporters are standing in front of big screens. And but in the early days of green screen technology and people were walking around, there was a sense of that. But now it's all happening, and it's all before your eyes in a headset. I know. Are you into it? So Apple's announcing a partnership with Disney, and they had a couple. Let's see, they had pre-taped video what viewing experiences could potentially look like, including an immersive Star Wars TV show and a function allowing users to watch multiple sporting events simultaneously. Ah, there. You think your ADHD is bad now? Just wait until you spend $3,500 to make it worse. A digital version of the Disneyland theme park could project into the user's physical world. You don't even have to go to Disneyland. You just put on these things. See, now that's my excuse. I'm saying, people ask, Emil, why do you wear those headphones? I'm wearing these headphones because I'm practicing for virtual reality. Clearly. So, and here's the thing about virtual reality. People know, this is just another form of the dreaded AI. I mean, make no mistake. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. It's not, they don't call it that, but there's a certain amount of AI involved. So, I don't know. It sounds fun. $3,500 worth of fun. Let's see. What else did Apple do today? They also announced some new things for... Oh, I don't have that story. They had some other things too. There's a new 15-inch MacBook Air, which has an M2 chip and sells for $12.99. There's a new Mac operating system called Sonoma. I guess they're going to involve all the counties around the Bay Area. I'm sure they're not going to call anything San Joaquin or Stanislaus. Too far. Too Central Valley. They're going to have iOS 17. That's come out. They got a health app that they introduced. And so, yeah, new products for Apple. I know, I got my iPhone 13. I thought I'd stop at 13. 13 is a good number to stop on, right? But maybe I've got to go. Maybe I have to. Maybe I'll wait for 15. I don't know. iPhone 15. Okay, a couple other things. Wall Street Journal reporting on Chris Licht. Chris Licht. I'm into the CNN story because basically I've been in the news business. And whenever the story is about news management, in no matter what the medium, TV, radio, newspapers, news management sucks. It's terrible. I mean, news management, I think in all the years that I've been in broadcasting, I may have had no more than one or two great managers. That's it. That's a terrible record. And Chris Licht over at CNN, if you've been following the story, Atlantic did a big piece on Licht and focused on the debacle known as the town hall, the Trump town hall, which was not as bad, I think, as people said, but it was bad enough. I mean, they got some news out of Trump. Trump, unfortunately, did roll over Caitlin Collins, the host, but I think she battled. She got some news out of Trump. But, we live in a Schadenfreude world where a lot of people in media wanted to see CNN come down And that's been the prevailing criticism of Chris Lick. That was the worst. That really brought CNN. I didn't think it was that as bad. But some of the other things he's done, they had a reporter following him who writes for The Atlantic. It was not flattering. New York Times did some more beating up on Chris Lick than CNN over the weekend. And then finally on the call this morning, the Wall Street Journal reports that Chris Lick was on a phone call. And they report the contents of the phone call. He says, quote, "I know these past few days have been very hard for this group." He talks to his management team at the network. "And I fully recognize that this news cycle and my role in it have overshadowed the incredible work of reporting, or the incredible week of reporting we just had, and had distracted from the work of every single journalist in this organization. And for that, I'm sorry." I mean, he's fallen on a sword here. They did some good work. They found some things on Trump, the Trump documents, but ratings are like the worst it's been. CNN is really struggling, and so it's interesting to see Lick try to make things better by sucking up to the team, saying it's not about my ego. He says, "As I read that article, I found myself thinking CNN is not about me. I should not be in the news unless it's taking arrows for you," he said on the call to his management team. "There are parts of that article and characterizations made where I don't recognize myself, but there are those of you who do. The experience has been tremendously humbling, and to those whose trust I lost, I will fight like hell to win it back." So you got to hand it to him. He knows that he came across as an ass in the story. He knows that it was too much about ego, too much about him, and he's trying to rectify that, including saying those words in his management phone call. It's now in the Wall Street Journal, and apparently some people were upset that at CNN's Hudson Yards office building, Lick put his office up on the 22nd floor, which is far from the 17th floor where most of the editorial staff is. So he's going to get a little closer. He's going to move, and maybe there'll be a turnaround. I think this is the problem with a lot of news managers. And when things go wrong, it's when things go to their heads. I mean, every single boss I had, except for maybe one or two in media-related type of things, I've never had a really, truly great boss. Except some writing bosses have been good, but they had bosses, and sometimes their bosses were the problem. So, I feel for CNN because I like CNN. I generally go to it more than Fox, and really more than MSNBC. MSNBC, if you know what's news and what's opinion, you dump the opinion, you just look for the news. And with MSNBC, it's almost too much opinion. And of course, they put all the news on some of their other channels, NBC Now and all these other places. And then on all the opinion stuff is generally on MSNBC. A good mix of opinion and news is helpful. But for just straight bread and butter, here's the news, you can get a better mix at CNN. Where it's maybe 60-40 or 70-30 news to opinion. And sometimes it's to say, here's the news, now here's the analysts who will talk about it. And frankly, the reason why they do that is because they're filling time and they don't have to do any fancy production with talk. I mean, it's really why 60 Minutes is the show that it is. They don't have to pay stars and starlets to be on network TV. It's a cheap way of doing news. And so I'd like to see CNN succeed. I think maybe if we take Licht at his word, maybe he'll get out of the way. And maybe the good reporters at CNN, and there have always been good reporters. I've always liked the reporters there. Unfortunately, most of my friends who were at CNN were of a previous generation, and they're gone now. You know, the John Hollamans. My God, John Holloman. The late John Holloman. The, who else? There are other guys. Their names escape me now. But Holloman, he was the best. Holloman was the best. All right, one last thing on the news I got to mention because it's come up. I don't usually watch Meet the Press. I used to. It's lost a lot of its cachet the last couple of years. And it may be because you either like, Todd, or you don't. God, I forgot his first name. It's bad. But I'm not against him. But a lot of people want to dump on Chuck Todd. And it's become more like a Washington sport, to get after, Chuck Todd. When he first started, I loved him. He coming in for Tim Russert. But something happened. I don't know. And now I don't even watch it as much. But the news, of course, is that Chuck Todd, remembered his name, stepping down and letting Chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker take over. Kristen Welker's good. She's moderated panels. Kristen Welker's smart. Went to Harvard. I mean, she's capable. She's an African-American woman. And so after years, right, of a white male-dominated franchise started by Lawrence E. Spivak, I think he was a co-founder. Now you got diversity. It's great. I mean, it took a while, but it happened. And I wish Kristen Welker well as she assumes it's not a throne, it's just an anchor seat. Meet the Press. The longest running show, right? I mean, it's like when Lawrence E. Spivak started that, I think in the 50s, it just keeps on going. It's an important show. And the fact that an African-American woman is at the helm, significant in terms of diversity in our country, diversity in our media. That's a plus that we can hoot and holler about. Really a plus. All right, so there, I mentioned everything on my list. I mean it. If you wanted to wear a red dress today, go ahead. Feel free. Free speech. I mean, it's that significant. And this ruling from Judge Parker in Tennessee. Drag is free speech. Don't forget it. It's all part of the debate, he said. And let's hope this judge's sentiments are echoed throughout every state where there's some kind of legislation where they're trying to ban drag, or they're doing some anti-LGBTQ thing. Check out my column on the ALDEF blog, aaldf.org/blog. Okay, that's it for the show today. Hey, thank you for listening. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific. I come on and speak. First Amendment. It's what I do for free. What you do? Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific or thereabouts. On Twitter, at Emil Amok. On YouTube, at Emil Amok1. On Facebook, at fb.com/Emil Guillermo Media. Repeat episodes on amok.com. Love to meditate. I discovered this meditation called Fists of Anger. Man, it gets your heart pumping because it's like doing the backstroke. I'll demonstrate someday. In the meantime, loving kindness, we exit on loving kindness. Because that's the basis. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal